This is Arun here. This tutorial aims to get you start writing Java code in less than 15 minutes. All you will need is Java installed in your laptops or desktops, and you should also have Eclipse installed in your environments. Let's go get started. Cool, let me go ahead and open up Eclipse. As part of this tutorial, I intend to walk you through how to put together basic classes, interfaces, and how to program to contract. Now let's quickly start putting together an interface. As you can see, I have built my interface out here. I'll walk you through the process of putting together your own interface. As you can see here, the first line says package. What is a package? A package is a namespace which collects a list of classes, interfaces, or abstract classes. Now, how do I go ahead and create a package in Eclipse? Pretty simple. You just have to pull up this menu, file, new, and you can see here a package, right? A Java project, and you can see here a package out here, right? All you need to do is click on this, and this is going to let you configure what should be the name of the package. And once you say this is the finalized name, it would just let you go ahead and create a package. Once you create a package in there, the next step is click the package, and inside there you should just go ahead and say create new, and you could just go ahead and say something like an interface here. Okay, now that you've created an interface, let's quickly talk about what is an interface. An interface is nothing but a contract that you expose to any client or customer who wants to call you. In this case, we are trying to build a car. So we are exposing an interface to a car. Who could potentially use the car interface? It could be a driver or a owner, or it could be whoever is interested in using the car for whatever reason. What is this public? It is public because we want this interface to be accessible to anybody and everybody. So we have given it a access modifier called public. Now, what are some of the operations that we would like to expose to the external world through this interface? There are two operations we have put up here. You would like to speed up the car, and we don't intend to take any input parameter, so it's an empty parameter out there. And we would like to return back a void. Void essentially means we don't like to return anything back to the customer. Now, if you look at the next method that we are exposing to our clients, it is the change gear. We would like to pass on which gear to which we would like the car to be operating at. So that's where you're passing an integer value. An integer in Java kind of takes 4 bytes or 32 bits. The return type is again a void. We don't intend to tell the driver anything if the gear got changed. So now that we have put together our interface, let's go ahead and look at our first implementation for an interface. Inside the same package, now you could just go ahead and click on new class, right? And once you click on the class, you will be able to enter the name of your class out here inside the package. Go ahead and do that. In our case, the class is called the car. So once you have done that, you would get a template which says public class car. And what is this implements? We are using this keyword to indicate that we are going to implement an interface, namely the car interface that we just created. Cool. So we have created our empty class, and inside it, if you see here, I have put in some variables. What are these variables? So these are the properties of a car. Every car would have a color. Every car would have a model number associated with it. Every car would certainly have a price associated with it. Every car would have the speed at which it is currently being driven, the gear in which it is operating. If you see here, there are different primitive types I'm using here. What are these types? String is a class in Java. It is like an array of characters. Long is a primitive type. Java is a very strongly typed language. Every variable you specify in Java will need a type. Long is a 64-bit capacity integer. Double is again a 64-bit capacity decimal. Float is a 32-bit capacity decimal. Integer is a 32-bit capacity number. Now, you see here there is a constructor. What do I call as a constructor? Constructor does not have a return value, right? So if you see here, there is a public constructor saying public car, and all it is doing is it's calling its parent class. Before we discuss a little further on what a constructor does, we need to understand a couple of concepts here. What is a class? A class is nothing but a blueprint or a template which gives you a definition of how to construct a Java object. Now, a constructor helps the JVM know what is the process of constructing a object. In this case, if I had to construct a car object, this constructor does not carry any input variable, right? So it's a default constructor, right? And you generally need a default constructor for every object at the least. Now I have a specific version of a constructor out here. Whenever I create a car with this constructor, I am going to be passing variables like the color, the model, and all that is needed to create a car. So if you look into the implementation, all we are doing is we are just configuring the state of the car. Think of it like you have a template car or a bare-bone car, and you're painting it, you are assigning it a model number, you're pricing it, and you're starting to operate it at a particular speed, right? So that is the key thing about constructors. Now I've also generated some of these getter and setter methods that we can go ahead and use, right? Let's quickly double click on one of these getter methods and setter methods, right? What does a getter method have? Getter method allows any external client to see the value of a private member, right, of this class. What is a private member? We talked about public a little bit, right? So there are three types of access modifiers. If you see here, I have marked all of my object variables as private, right? Why is that? Because I don't want anybody else outside of this object to be able to modify the state of this object. That is when I say that this is private. There is also another access specifier which is protected, which essentially would allow any class within this package to go ahead and modify the state of these variables. If I, instead of calling it private, if I go ahead and say protected, that is what would happen. There is a default access modifier where, in which case you don't specify anything. You don't specify private or protected. You just get a default specification, right? In that case, only this class and the inherited versions of this class could have direct access to the state of these variables. Now, let's look at a typical setter. What does a setter do? It takes in a value and sets the corresponding value to the state of this object. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, you would see methods like speed up, and you would also see methods to set the right gear. Now, there is an interesting keyword out here, which is overrides, right? Why are we writing this up here? We are overriding this method from the interface. Remember, our car implements the car interface. This method came from the car interface. Speedup is a method that was defined as a signature in the car interface. Now I am providing an implementation for this car. Hence, I had to do a override. Now let's go further down. Even the change gear was a method that we are overriding from the interface. Now, interestingly, there is another method called as the toString, which also has the override annotation on top of that. Why is that? That is because any class has a default inheritance. Every class in Java is a child or is inherited from the Java lang object. And Java lang object essentially provides some of the utility functions like the toString. And how is the toString useful? When you really want to print out an object, right? If you print an object, it would print the address of the object. But if you go ahead and implement the toString method, it's going to actually print out the contents or the way you have implemented the object. In this case, I have implemented it to pull out all the state information about this object, and all of this will get printed out when I try to print an object. We will see that when we are looking at our test hub. Now let me walk you through another class, right? This class is about a sedan car. A sedan car essentially is a type of a car, right? There could be many types of cars. There could be an SUV car, there could be a multi utility car, there could be a hatchback car. All of these are types of cars. Hence, we do the inheritance, right? Whenever there is a relationship, it is a relationship, right? Is a relationship is always mapped to inheritance. In this case, what we have is a sedan car is a car. That's what it means here. When you say public class sedan car extends car. Now, if you look at it, I am extending all features of a car, all properties of a car continue to be properties of a sedan car unless I decide to override it here. I have additionally added one more property or state to the sedan car, which is the length of the truck, right? In this case, I'm initializing it to 0, right? And we also have setters and getters for the length of the truck. And besides that, if you look at this constructor, right, you take all the parameters along with the length of the truck, right? Length of the truck also gets added in here, correct? So now, a sedan car has all features both in terms of properties as well as in terms of behavior of a car. It also has the length of the truck. Besides all of that, And out here, since it is a sedan car, whenever you try to speed up, it speeds up faster than a normal car. Hence, we have overridden the behavior of the speed up method, right? If you see here, I have gone ahead and I've incremented the speed by 2, and I've set the new current speed to a speed that is stepped up by 2, right? Instead of it being by 1 like you saw in the car implementation. Now, the toString method also has a slight modification. Out here, we have gone ahead and added the length of the truck along with every other parameter. Now, let's go ahead and start testing. We are good with our implementation. Congratulations, right? Let's start testing now and see what happens. In order to test this, we will need to write a bit of a test code, right? So if you look at it, I have put together a main method, right? It's the starting point for execution in any of the Java programs, right? So if you see here, this is again another class which is part of the same package. You can, like we talked about a little earlier, you could go ahead and create the car test class and create the main method, right? Creating some of these boilerplate methods like the main method or the constructors or the getter setters that we saw, right? They are fairly straightforward, and Eclipse gives you some of this boilerplate generated out of the box, right? In order to do that, all you need to do is you just go click on the source, and out here you can see lot of options that you have, right? You have something like generate getters and setters, or you could say things like generate constructors. There's a lot of such utility functions that are out here, right? You could go ahead and do any of those that you want, right? In this case, I have generated my main method, and inside the main method I go ahead and initialize my new car. There is an interesting thing that you see here, right? How am I initializing a car? There are multiple ways to initialize a car, right? I am saying I have a car interface, right? I am going to create my car, and that my car is going to be yellow in color. It's going to have the model number 1. It's going to be costing us like 100K, and it's going to have all other parameters initialized as part of it. And then I'm going to just print my car, right? Interestingly, right, this interface, you could go and swap this with the sedan car, right? So this is why it is programming to interface, right, or programming to contract, right? If you and everything else will automatically work. If I go ahead and say things like uh, car interface my car equal to new sedan car, right? It would still work, right? So that's the cool thing about it, right? So if you go down here, you see this here, car interface my sedan car is equal to new sedan car. Now this, though these two, my car as well as my sedan car, both are of the type car interface, my car will behave like a car and my sedan car will behave like a sedan car. What a fun thing, right? Now, if you look at it, there's one more way of instantiating a sedan car. I could just go ahead and give a concrete implementation of a sedan car. Right now that I've inherited a sedan car from a car, I can say I am going to create an instance of a sedan car, not a car interface, not a car. I could just make it very concrete out here and say sedan car my sedan car, and I could just go ahead and say things like new sedan car, and I could pass values in it, and I can print my sedan car out here, right? So this is given that we have created all of these, right? I can go ahead and print out car, my sedan car, and the Honda City car, right? And let's see what we get as output. So are we ready to run our cool little experiment that we are conducting now? Let's see what we get here, right? Let me go ahead and run this, right? So I'm going to run car.test, right? So when I run car.test, let's see what I'm going to get here, right? So if you see here, you are going to see that car gets printed out. What was a car? We had a yellow car with a basic model, right? It did not have a trunk or anything like that, right? So trunk did not get printed, right? If you see the car, you did not get the trunk printed. Now if you go down and see, we have modified the car's speed and changed the gear. Now what has happened? You can see the changes in the speed has gone to 1, right? It increments by 1, and then you also get your current gear is showing out to be 2, right? And then you have the sedan car shows you the length of the truck. If you remember, that was the additional feature we added into the sedan car, right? You could also go ahead and see what is the length and what is the current speed, right? And all the parameters are visible out here, right? And when I do a speed up and then I go ahead and print the sedan car, you can clearly see that the speed bumps up by 2, so our overrides also work, right? So let me quickly recap for you. So, what are the things that we went about learning today? We went about learning what is a interface, what is a class, how do you instantiate a class, how do you instantiate methods in a class, right? And how do you go about using program to contract. Cool guys, that's all I had for today. If you like my video, do subscribe to my channel so that you get to see more such interesting videos from me, and also hit the like button. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again in another interesting episode of my tutorial. Thank you. Bye bye.